I thought I was having a stroke when the presentation screen suddenly froze on my face. My mouth was open and my eyes were half closed, just as Greg said. Loud enough for the whole boardroom to hear. Christ. We need subtitles for this guy. The room fell into a quiet that felt like burnt coffee and shame. It was the kind of quiet where no one would look at you because guilt is like a disease, and Greg had just coughed it all over everyone. A few clients let out nervous giggles, while others just stared at their pastries. One person looked like they wanted to hide in the HDMI port. That's how the quarterly kickoff began, and it had been the routine for a while. Greg would mock my accent as if it were some kind of cheap party trick. But this time, he went too far. This time, he didn't just mock me during a coffee break or a snicker from behind his tablet. This time, he used my accent as a weapon in a public, strategic way. He knew that if I stayed silent, it would be even more humiliating. And for 83 minutes, I did just that. But something inside me broke. It wasn't a gentle snap, but the sound of a piano wire stretching to its breaking point. Let me explain the gravity of the situation. I wasn't just a junior intern trying to secure a visa. I was the senior brand liaison for Central and Eastern Europe, overseeing multi-million-dollar accounts. I had been with the company for 15 years, earned 6 promotions, and had a spotless record. I was a professional with more depth than Greg's hair implants. And unlike him, I had earned my success. However, as soon as I started to get attention on international panels, Greg became a territorial meerkat with a Napoleon complex and an old gym membership. I first noticed the change when a client asked me a question during his Q&A session. The polite smile he gave me then was the same one he was wearing now. Just before he'd use a joke about my vowels to destroy my credibility. Still, I said nothing. That night, I went home and deleted my Netflix account. I didn't want any distractions or comfort. I wanted evidence. Have you ever tried to sync a voice recorder to a smart pen in a company-issued notebook? It's surprisingly simple, especially when your 14-year-old nephew, who programs drones for fun, thinks that revenge is a cool thing to do. The first attempt was a low-risk test, a Tuesday call with a Japanese vendor. Greg was 12 minutes late and immediately greeted them with Konoswa Sushi Squat. That was just the beginning. The following week, he called a Chilean executive Senor Spicy Tuna and tried to high-five me. My hand remained at my side. The third week, he ruined a presentation by showing a meme of how Eastern Europeans say hello. It was a picture of Rocky Balboa shouting with bottles of vodka photoshopped into his hands. His caption read, #BusinessCasualBrutes. I saved, categorized, and exported every single one of these incidents. I wasn't just building a case. I was constructing a coffin. And with every arrogant little jab, Greg was hammering nails into it. You might think someone in PR would have noticed by now, but Greg was protected. His dad's poker buddies were on the board. HR's verbal warnings were about as effective as whispering at a tornado. He was untouchable until he wasn't, because this is where things changed. Around week 9, I was staying late to prepare slides for an EU sustainability launch. It was just me, the janitor, and a ghostly silence. Greg's office door was slightly ajar. I saw a half-empty whiskey glass and his iPad which was glowing with a paused video. I was curious, but it was the video's title that caught my attention. Greg Monroe, keynote draft, personal notes. I didn't mean to look at his screen. But my body just happened to walk in, and my eyes coincidentally read 3 bullet points. Lean into the foreignness joke. Gets laughs. Use radic for accent pivot. Clients remember it. Keep it light if HR asks. It's rapport building. My ears were ringing. My jaw clenched. My thumb began to twitch, like it wanted to hit something but hadn't found a target yet. I returned to my desk. That night, I uploaded every single file and audio clip. I named the folder Greg's Greatest Hits and set the permissions to private. Then I copied the folder to an encrypted drive and mailed it to the one place I knew still cared about their public image. The legal and PR departments. What happened next is when things stopped being funny. That's when Greg realized his jokes had an audience he couldn't laugh off. Greg came to work the next morning as if it were just another Thursday. He smelled of cheap cologne, was louder than he needed to be, and wore a grin like a man who never learned humility. He fist-bumped the receptionist and joked about importing charm with a side of dumplings as he passed May from accounting. Same routine, same smug attitude, but his eyes kept darting toward the executive wing. Something was wrong, and even his lizard brain could sense it. He didn't know it yet, but the board had already seen the recordings. They saw him making jokes about my Slavic warlord energy during a meeting with UNICEF. They saw him pretending to choke on a kielbasa during a pitch to a Polish non-profit. They saw him mocking my radioactive consonants in front of a Romanian delegation while trying to sell them ESG software. The VP of Communications almost threw a stapler at the screen. The legal team's silence, I was told, usually precedes settlements in the high 6 figures. The PR team's phones were off that morning, not because they were out of the loop, but because they were busy preparing an internal statement that would make Greg's resignation seem as if it had been planned for months. The only problem was that Greg hadn't received the memo yet. I was at my desk, sipping my black, extra bitter coffee when I got a Slack message from Carla in legal room B12.